And next up, we have Kevin Harms, who's going to take us into the OpenSFS annual member meeting.
Thanks, Sean. So my name is Kevin Harms. I'm the Vice President of OpenSFS. We're going to have a short presentation to conclude LUG for our annual member meeting. I invite everyone to stay. It should be brief, and then Sean will close us out and take us to the networking event. Next slide, please. So first, I'd like to recognize and thank all of the OpenSFS supporters pictured here. I'd also like to ask if you've enjoyed the LUG event and you've been a participant and you don't see your organization listed as a supporter, we'd like to invite you to join. It's very economical, to be a member. It's only $1,000 US a year. And if you're a vendor, it's around $5,000 a year. So I invite you to, yes, please join if you're not a member already. Next slide. So just a brief reminder of, what does OpenSFS do as an organization? So, what we mainly do is facilitate the community around Lustre. We don't currently fund any type of Lustre development or intend to drive Lustre development, but we want to promote Lustre itself and the community. And of course, one of the big things is LUG and the various webinars and things we've done over the years. Next slide. So now we're going to go into the board elections. And so before we get to the results, I'd like to thank the nominating committee. Every year we have board elections of a subset of the positions, and we always need a nominating committee to go and find member organizations to put forward candidates, and then committee collects those candidates and provides those to OpenSFS. So to Kent, Christy, and Philippe, thank you for your service this year. And they were able to find 3 candidates for our 2 open positions. So next slide, please. So the results for the board elections this year, Sarp Oral was elected, and he will be the new president of OpenSFS and be serving a 2-year term. And Kirill Lazinski was reelected for a 2-year term as treasurer. As well as we have a non-elected director at large position. So Steve Sims, the current president, will assume that role for the next 2 years as a director at large and continue helping to transfer his knowledge to the new board members. So here's a makeup of the current board as it stands today. So let's move to the next slide. So at this time, I'm going to hand it off to Kirill, who's going to take us through the OpenSFS finances.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining us. I will try to be brief and just do a summary of the 2020 year as well as the 2021. Okay, so let's jump right into the 2020 budget. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you know, it was a really hard year for pretty much everyone. We didn't have LUG like we planned to have, so we ended up having webinars last year. We just had a couple. So our event income was significantly less than it normally is. Fortunately, we saved up over the last previous years, and OpenSFS is doing well. And we had a very kind grant sponsorship given to us last year. So thank you very much to the anonymous donor who gave $1,000. And thank you very much to sponsors from last year who have sponsored the webinar. And of course, our members and participants. Without you, it would be very difficult to exist. So that's what it looked like last year. Next slide. And so we had expenses, of course, and this is the usual that we see. So operational expenses, the majority of money goes for the administrative services. So this is basically running OpenSFS as a nonprofit. So, huge thanks as always to VTM and Jen and her team. Okay, next slide. So 2021 is, of course, interesting. So we were very conservative and said that we are not anticipating any sort of event revenue. Of course, that's not true. We are having this event. And of course, a huge thanks to DDN and HP for sponsoring. So that number will go up. And of course, once again, thank you very much to the participants and members. Next slide. And these are our projected expenses. So again, pretty similar things here. The events number will actually go up because there's a cost for using this platform and virtual networking, but it's it wouldn't be enormous. Okay, that's all I had. And if anybody has questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm always happy to talk about this, go into detail if you have questions and so on. All right, thank you very much.
Next, we're going to have Dominic go through the requirements gathering process.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, so OpenSFS has facilitated a requirements gathering process. Most of you are probably familiar with it. Main objective of this process is to provide communication mechanisms between members and participants, mostly for Lustre features or enhancements that would benefit our OpenSFS community. And so historically, this process has been, we sort of collect and order the member requests based on a voting scheme. And then we sort of roll up those requests and prioritize them, put them into a report and provide that report to our participant organizations. So we've decided to revisit this process, first to determine if it's still worthwhile, and then if so, what we can do to improve upon it. Next slide, please. Okay, so first and foremost, I'd really like to thank Megan Larco on behalf of the board. She has volunteered her personal time to dedicate the review and implementation of the new ideas that we're coming up with for the requirements gathering process. So thank you, Megan. In the past week, we've shared a survey with our participants to get feedback on our current process, what our current process provides to them from their perspective. And then we've also included some questions on potential modifications and how those might impact participation going forward. So thank you to those of you that have already completed the survey. If any of you feel that you should have received the survey and you didn't, maybe reach out to your OpenSFS participant contact or reach out to me or Megan directly. The survey does close May 28th, so please, if you have not completed it, please do so. I think we'll be sending out a couple more reminders with the links. So once we review the survey responses and sort of analyze what next steps are needed, we will provide an update to our organization. Thank you all. Kevin.
Thanks. I'd like to just highlight some of the upcoming events. So, of course, we're here today at LUG 2021, hosted by the University of Florida. So we'd like to thank again UF for hosting LUG this year. Coming up, we have an ISC 21 BOF that's co-hosted by UFS and OpenSFS. So if you're at ISC, please join the BOF. Also later this year, I talked to Gail, and for LAD 21, their current planning is to be a virtual event on September 28th through 30th. He still needs to confirm those dates, but you can start looking for that for LAD. And then we normally host a Lustre Community BOF jointly with EOFS at Supercomputing. So we'll plan to do that again this year. We have to submit our proposal and get it accepted before it's final, but that is the plan. And then last thing I'd like to draw your attention to is, if you've noticed the last few years, we have been hosting LUG with some kind of user community site. So if you're interested in hosting LUG for either 2022 or 2023, please get in contact. Let us know. It's not that difficult. OpenSFS is here to help out, and we look forward to having some people interested in hosting LUG. Go to the next slide. Lastly, I'd like to thank the hosting committee. So this team here has put together this virtual LUG for us. And as you can see, there's members from the host site, as well as OpenSFS and VTM, which helped support this event. And so if you're interested in hosting LUG, you can see like you'll get lots of support from OpenSFS. So thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sean to kind of close out the event.